Donald Trump on the campaign trail repeatedly said that he was going to eliminate the Department of Education. Well, he can't legally eliminate it. No president can eliminate a cabinet-level department of the government. He can't do that. The Congress has to approve the elimination of that. What he can do, well, what he's trying to do is fire half of the entire staff of the Department of Education so that it is unable to fulfill its goals and basically, without doing it literally, eliminating the Department of Education.
Yep.
So yesterday and today, Donald Trump has killed off 2,000 jobs in total of the education department.
Yeah, 1,300 people that actually worked in the Department of Education, and then about 700 private workers who are funded by Department of Education money.
Now, all of the Department of Education only employs about 4,000 people. So that's where we're getting that half figure. Two areas where they're going after these employees. One, research on how schools are doing educating our students.
Yes.
And then two, civil rights protections for students with disabilities, race, or gender discrimination, and people who face sexual harassment.
Yeah. And so
let's start with the research.
The research is the problem is that this work is highly multiplicative. There's a high multiplier effect on having good information on your educational system. That provides like a baseline with which all of the educators and principals around the country and students in colleges can use to make decisions about how they want to run their schools and how they want to best educate their students. And this is at a time when test scores for American kids are the lowest that they've ever been.
And it's interesting that in response to our test scores being the lowest they've ever been, Donald Trump has said, let's get rid of the test.
Yeah.
That is his response. Oh, we're doing bad on the test? Let's stop taking it.
Well, of course, what Trump says is broadly the low test scores are proof that the way that the Department of Education is currently being run isn't working. So we got to make big changes, right? And so it's an argument that works great for someone who isn't looking any closer at the actual details of this picture.
Yes. And do you really think the problem, everyone watching, if you're a Trump supporter, do you think the problem with our education system is that we're collecting too much data on how students are doing?
Yeah, is the problem with the education system that we're trying to know how the education system works? Like,
No.
how ridiculous is that?
It is ridiculous, and I think Trump is using this hopefully, well, not hopefully. I think Trump is using this level of ignorance to attack an institution he simply does not like.
Yeah.
I think that is a big part of it.
Yeah.
And if we look at places that do have really strong test scores and are performing really well, it's actually places that do a lot of data collection, that have a ton of centralized oversight, so that other schools do not get away with depriving their students of good quality education. Look at Finland, look at South Korea. These nations have highly centralized, highly stringent education systems that are the best in the world because they have so much data collection and so much oversight from entities that know what they're talking about and use quantitative reasoning to back up what they're talking about.
Yes. So to me, the best explanation for why he's doing this is kind of what you just alluded to, is that Trump is trying to remove any kind of bulwarks within the executive branch that don't ladder up directly to him. And of course, now he has his own Secretary of Education in here, which is Linda McMahon, who is the wife of Vince McMahon, the CEO of WWE, which is an obviously hilarious and highly memeable pick. But underneath her, there are a bunch of career civil servants who probably lean fairly liberal just based on the fact that they are education workers.
That they care about education.
Yes,
Right? I
right.
mean, then you're a liberal because that's the world we live in now, where if you care about education, you have to be a liberal.
Well, when we live in a world where Donald Trump is the
Well, that's what I'm
nominee
saying.
of the Republicans, you kind of have to be.
That's
yeah.
what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
When one side of the political spectrum wants to say we don't want to test our kids anymore to see how they're doing and we don't want to collect data. And now let's go into the next branch, okay?
Yeah.
Trump also is not going to enforce civil rights protections for students, which was one of the main reasons why the Department of Education exists. If we go back in time to 1979, when the Department of Education got created, it was under Jimmy Carter. And the main reason he did so was he wanted a dedicated suite of United States bureaucrats the B word that's so scary to go after people who are discriminating against black people in school.
Okay.
That's why the Department of Education got created in the first place.
Hmm.
Now, Donald Trump is rolling back all civil rights protections. If you had a disability and you were suing the school that your kid was going to because they weren't properly accommodating him, you were going through the Department of Education. Donald Trump has halted all disability-related civil rights cases through the Department of Education. So if you have a student with disabilities, if you have a kid with disabilities, Donald Trump simply does not want the federal government to be a voice for you. He doesn't care. And that's actually at the core of a lot of this Republican ideology, is that they actually don't care about these groups that face harder times for their immutable characteristics, whether it be a woman, black, gay, whatever it is. They don't want the federal government to be your backstop of protection.
Yeah. I think it's even more than they don't care, because it is like they really, really do care about getting rid of the support.
No, they actually really care about making your life worse. Like, they really care about that.
And of course, the argument is just that the anti-discrimination is still discrimination, right? That's where they try to come from. It's just that all of the evidence says that that's not the case.
Yeah, and so this is where we're at now. We have a Republican Party that does not believe that students or classrooms or teachers should be tested in order to gather which schools are performing well, which schools are performing poorly. They don't want that to happen. They don't want kids with disabilities or of a different race to be able to be able to go to the federal government and sue their local institutions for breaking their rights. They don't want that world. What Donald Trump says, and what he always says, is he wants states and local governments to be at the forefront of education. Well, guess what, guys? We tried that, and the result was Jim Crow. And the Department of Education was the result of fighting back against Jim Crow.
Exactly.
That's what this was all about. And now when Donald Trump says, "Make America great again," he is referring to a time when black kids and black parents had no place to go to voice their concerns for discrimination. And so now, because we've expanded that to people with disabilities and we've expanded that to people who have a different sexual identity from you, now they're no longer comfortable with it and they're going to shut it down.
The one other thing I want to add before we sign off here is the idea that this is somewhat good, like we don't have the money to spend. It's a completely ridiculous argument. The amount of money that we're cutting here is certainly under $1 billion as far as the employment of these people that we're talking about. It is we just need to keep hammering this home. I feel like we talked about it in a lot of videos that come down to how Trump is trying to cut the government, and that the vast majority of government spending does not go to the actual employees' salaries that they pay. So this is not helping as far as our fiscal responsibility argument.